Hello and welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host Neil Magnuson, and this is the show where we talk about the truths in our world that don't make us very happy in many cases. The fact that there is some hope for change, and we try to find some mechanisms for that change, as every show. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca join me for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will be here to talk a little bit about his case, although there's a publication ban, so we really can't talk about the details. But it's still very important to keep talking about what's going on with Jerry and that case in particular. And we'll have an update about the CSP Healing Wave van, which we do every week. What's got me upset this week, every week, but really, you know, as we wait for Health Canada to give us permission so that we can continue our life-saving work here on the downtown east side of providing high-dose cannabis edibles to people that are struggling with addiction to help them get through withdrawal and replace the use of those street drugs that are killing people. It becomes more and more frustrating and angering to have to realize that you know, our governments are not what they're supposed to be doing. It's shocking, really, because you know, it's a crime if you see somebody that's being injured or harmed in some way and you do nothing about it. I mean, there's a famous Seinfeld episode, the final show of a season, where they're in some little town passing through and they see somebody being beaten and mugged, and they just laugh at it and make jokes about it and stand there and do nothing. But, you know, the town had passed a law that that's not legal to just stand and do nothing, and so they ended up being on trial for it. And that's a very valid thing, because not only is it a crime to do damage, but it's a crime not to interfere where damage is being done if you can do something about it. Everybody has that responsibility, and especially public servants. But our public servants have been negligent for a long time in their responsibilities with respect to how they treat people and what is and what isn't a crime. And in fact, with the cannabis file, they've been extremely negligent in how they've handled the people that need to use cannabis, especially for medical purposes. You know, disabled people in this country had a hell of a go for a very long time. They were considered a burden on society. They were shunned. They were not given opportunities, and there was many barriers. And that started to change after the Second World War, when people came back home injured and disabled, and more rights were gained until in the 70s we finally had the Canadian Human Rights Act, which was supposed to give disabled people equal access to that which non-disabled people have. There's a lot of disabled people. In Canada, it makes up about 13.7% of Canadians are considered to be disabled. That's about 3.8 million of us. And that doesn't even include the people that are suffering mental trauma and have all kinds of issues and inability to function in our society because of what's happened to them, you know, mentally or emotionally, traumas in many cases. But just people with pain issues and flexibility issues and mobility issues make up this bulk of Canadians that are considered disabled. And Canada says that they seek to reduce barriers for disabled people. But in the case of access to cannabis, they've put up huge barriers for people that need to access cannabis. And this is just completely wrong, but it's a crime as well. And for the reason that I stated, that there's a number of people that are being significantly harmed because our government is not giving them proper access or actively working against their access. There's been over 18,000 arrests for people with respect to cannabis since we got legalization in Canada. And those aren't even the full numbers yet. That's a lot of people that have been arrested for helping other people get cannabis. And I'm sure in many of those cases, it was people trying to help disabled people get access to cannabis. Disabled people, if they can manage to find a doctor, although the whole doctor side of things is also very corrupt. They don't want people using cannabis as medicine. They've proven that over the decades, the positions that they've taken, the statements that they've made, the active restrictions on doctors to help people get cannabis. So if a disabled person can get a doctor to allow them or give them their prescription for using cannabis, it's not like any other prescription that you would get. I mean, you can get a prescription of the most toxic and dangerous prescription drugs from doctors, and within a half an hour, you're next door in the pharmacy walking out with what you were prescribed. But in the case of cannabis, this extremely non-deadly drug, this great drug that people use for so many things, but really it has no deathly side effects or serious side effects. This particular medical application, which people are getting their doctor's permission to use, is not something that you get half an hour later out of a drugstore. It takes weeks, and it takes months, and it's taken years for people to actually be able to get the medicine that they need, even after their doctors have said that they can have it. So this is nothing but an absolute attack on disabled people. And that's what's going on here. And that's what I find so disgusting about all of this. We'll talk a little bit later in the show with Jerry Martin about his court case, although we can't talk too much about that. But we can talk about what that case is about. And what that case is about is that people need to have a storefront. They deserve to have a storefront that they can walk into to get their medical needs met by this extremely benign but extremely beneficial and powerful healing herb that we've been using on this planet for thousands of years. And yet here our public servants have seen fit to go along with no science and no debate, but simple hysteria, but serving the needs of the rich elite in demonizing and stigmatizing and criminalizing cannabis and the people that would use it and grow it and sell it for over 100 years. We've been at this. Well, in Canada since 1923, so we're coming right up on 100 years of this immoral, unjustified, dangerous, and costly prohibition that we've been involved with for all of that time. And the other side of it is that what Jerry's fighting for is the right for there to be medical dispensaries, because he was an operator of one for 4 years in Saskatchewan until he was busted, and now he's been 4 years trying to get his day in court, which he just had last week. But on our side of it, what we've been trying to do is provide no-cost cannabis to people here on the downtown east side. For over 4 years now, we've been providing high-dose edibles to people that would line up for hours, hundreds of people, twice a week for years, coming to get care packs that we would put together from donated products to give to people, and had great success in helping people get through withdrawal with high-dose edibles and with helping people replace the use of the opioids and the street drugs. And so we've had doctors writing letters, doing studies, releasing these things for years now. Dr. M.J. Malloy, if you Google him and the studies that he's released, much of it studying our project and how successful it was. And we've literally got hundreds of people that we've been able to help through the process of getting through withdrawal and getting off of opioids using high-dose cannabis edibles. And that's all fine and good, except that it's not ever been legal for us to do that. I've always had to be somewhat clandestine in the way that I managed to secure the donations that we got and get them to the location to give them out. Worried that perhaps I'd be, pulled over by a cop for a tail light out or something like that and end up losing all of the things that we're bringing to help people with. So our project was never legal from the beginning. Even though legalization came in, it was still illegal to hand out copious amounts of high-dose edibles to people. And so when we finally got some level of respect from our city government and a motion passed to allow us to move into a storefront, we did that as quickly as we could, and we started providing low-cost as well as no-cost cannabis. But because the federal government refused to immediately support us, we ended up getting evicted from the store that we had, and the city is still waiting for us to get permission from the federal government and Health Canada so that they can give us a license and allow us to help people with low-cost and no-cost cannabis here in Vancouver. We applied to the federal government because of all that stuff going on long before we ever got evicted from the store, and that was the purpose of the application, was to be able to stay in the store and continue helping people the way that we were at that time. We had a well-evolved system, and we had good things in place to test all of our products and make sure what we were giving people was what the community needed in ways that was helping the community. And so we put in, thanks to the great efforts of John Conroy and Jack Lloyd, who've helped us just immensely, we put into the federal government an application for licenses for ourselves and our staff and for the suppliers of cannabis that we were using. And along with that, more importantly, we sent in an application for a temporary ministerial exemption that we should have got within a couple of weeks for sure, that would have prevented the eviction of our group from the storefront and all the troubles that we've had since. all of these obstacles that we've had to deal with in the last several months of buying an RV and providing our services from an RV and withstanding a police raid and threats from the parking people and threats from the VPD and all the other things that have happened here that would not have happened had we been able to stay in the store, are all the result of a federal government that did not do their proper due diligence in assessing the application that we put before the federal health minister and stood idly by while these things have happened to us. And this is just as bad as a criminal act. When there is death going on and someone is there trying to help that, you need to help that person save those people's lives. And if you're a government, if you're public servants, if you're paid by the public and your job is to make sure the public is kept safe, then you damn well better support these people like us that are finding ways to solve this issue with the addiction overdose epidemic. You better not just stand idly by for months and not do anything to help those people. And in fact, when your inaction is even causing distress for the people that are trying to do this life-saving work, this is a crime that's being committed. And this is our governments that have been doing it. We are now into our 8th month, just about 8 months since we applied for that ministerial exemption, that temporary exemption to allow us to continue what we're doing. That is a crime. And I'm getting more and more upset about it all the time. I'm not sure what to do about it other than to keep doing what we're doing. But at some point, we will be putting forward a constitutional challenge against what the government is not doing to support and allow this work of providing a non-lethal option to the opioids and the street drugs that are killing people. It is just unconscionable that we can't get that permission, and that all levels of government sit idly by, from the feds to the province to the city, that has done nothing to help us other than to try to encourage the federal government. And even in the federal government, there's people there trying to encourage the process to get them going on it so that we can get what we need to be able to do what we're doing in the way that we can do it best, which is not from an RV parked on the curbside without electricity right through the winter time. Now we're going into the heat of the summertime, having people line up outdoors, many times in the rain and other inclement weather conditions. This is just not right. And it's been going on for a very long time, and it really, really needs to stop. So we want people to get in touch with the government and to ask them to help us, to support us. We think that this can be done in several different ways. You can contact the federal health minister directly. You can find out the contact information through the Google search engines or whatever search engine you use, and then send them an email, send them a letter, make a telephone call, and ask them, why they're not supporting this group in Vancouver, the Cannabis Substitution Program, that is helping people get off of opioids. We're saving people's children here. We're rescuing people that have been lost to society because of the traumas that they've gone through. And we need to have our government support that. So you can send emails and make phone calls and write letters. Letters are pretty cool these days too. They still get sent apparently. So, and apparently that has even more effect, is when the letter arrives and the person has to open it up and read it. So let's do whatever we can. And it's not just the federal health minister, it's not just Health Canada. It would be the Prime Minister's office, it would be the Justice Minister's office, it would be provincial politicians, from provincial attorneys general to their health ministers, to the local city governments and the municipal governments that need to really support this project and what's going on. And I think that anybody once really introduced to what it is that we're doing here, that we are providing people with what they need in the way of high-dose edibles, because that works to get through withdrawal and to get off of opioids and street drugs. When they understand what we're doing here, when they come and see, and we've had very few people come and see what we're doing here, but we see it every day. We see the differences in the people that we've been helping for all of these years. There's a few hundred people that have been coming to us, and we know them well now. And they're very happy that we're here. They thank us from the bottom of their heart for us being here. We've seen the changes in them and their lives, how they've gone from people struggling with toxic street drugs and drug sick to people that are living happy lives and quite content and so happy that they can come to a place and get what they need in the way of high-dose edibles and other cannabis-related flowers and products. So we've seen the huge difference that goes on here. Very few, if any, government people have ever come to see the difference that's going on here. We've encouraged lots of them to come and visit us, and we still do. I think that should be part of maybe giving us approval, would be to come down here and to see how we do what we're doing, and to talk to some of the people that we're helping, and to talk to the people in the neighborhood and see if we're a positive force here. I mean, if they did that, they would have no question but to support what we're doing. They would be in tears by the time that they left. They would do everything in their power to help us, yet they don't come. And they don't want to hear about it. So that's why it's important that a whole bunch of people contact them and tell them about it, and ask them about it, and ask them to support it, and explain it to them. They can go on our Facebook page, the Cannabis Substitution Project page, and find the posts that are there about how it's helping people in their lives in so many profound ways. Not just to get off of opioids and get through withdrawal, but it helps with all of the drivers of addiction. It helps with people who are suffering in pain for numerous different injuries and traumas and things that have happened to them. It helps people sleep. It helps people with their overall wellness, but so much more than that. It helps people with arthritis and other types of pain. So, you know, it's just the natural right thing that we should be doing, and the fact that we can't do it, and we're not getting permission to do it, and that we're worried about being shut down, and we're worried about having the police come and raid us again, and we're worried that the federal government is actually going to say no to our application, and all of those things that we're worried about speaks directly to the level of corruption that has seeped into our society, that has infiltrated our government, where all of their concerns, whether or not to give us support, are based financially on people that are making way too much money off of the legal cannabis that's available now because of legalization. These are the only concerns of our government, is how do they give us permission to have low-cost, good-quality cannabis and low-barrier access to cannabis when they've got a system set up that is high barrier and high cost and enforced with our tax dollars through police agencies that are continuing to criminalize all of the groups that would supply cannabis. You know, when people could grow their own, and we won the right to grow our own for medicine and to have other people grow for us, there was all kinds of people that got into growing. There was arrangements that were made with compassion clubs and with dispensaries that people could share the excess that they grew with other patients. And all those people want to be part of the legal system. They all consider themselves growers and suppliers of cannabis. And yet, with legalization, all of these many, many thousands of people find themselves outside of the law and outside of the system, and told that they can no longer grow for themselves and others what they thought they could or what they should be able to grow. And so legalization is further criminalization for medical people and sick people. Legalization does not provide proper access to cannabis. It provides recreational access to, you know, people that want to go to a government store, but it provides zero access to medical patients in any way that's reasonable, especially if those people are poor. That's the 419 warning. So roll them if you haven't, and we'll join Glenn Wells in just a minute here. But it's very important that you understand just how corrupt this whole situation is, and how bad it is, and how much it's costing us, and how much it's hurting individual Canadians. It's really important because it's one of the bigger issues of our day, and it's something that anybody can get their teeth into and do something about. If we all join together we're very strong. Together we can make a difference. And if we have a whole bunch of people that are contacting people in positions of influence and demanding that disabled people get their rights and get easy, equal access to cannabis and all the natural cannabis products, then that can make a huge difference. So I really hope that you know, you'll find some time and write a letter or send an email or do something to help move this position or this situation the way it should go. So that's my rant for the day. Thank goodness for 420. I'm all right, Glenn. If it wasn't for 420, I would just be ranting all day.
You guys would be hearing all day.
Because that's what I do, right?
And Sterling says, be careful not to say his name 3 times because he might appear.
All right. Be careful about that.
Yeah. I was reading the
I kind of wish that the cannabis professor could come on the show and share some of his knowledge one day.
Oh, he will.
He's a very, very smart feller.
Yes, the Mr. Sterling there.
We used to have a show where I interviewed people. That was fun.
Yeah.
We got to know a lot of the different activists.
Then you got a store.
And then we got a store, and that became a big story.
Yeah.
And so we weren't really interviewing people as much when we got the store because, you know, we were talking about the store and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we got kicked out of the store, and then we applied to Health Canada, and that's become the big story. So I don't do much in the way of interviews anymore, but when I do go back to doing interviews, I really look forward to getting together with so many of our friends, in the cannabis community here and other places in Canada, and going back to some other format besides just waiting for the government to.
He says he's coming. Might be a few weeks. It's a long walk.
It's a long walk. Try rollerblades.
Yeah, try rollerblades.
I skated to where you are, Sterling, the whole way.
Put a sail on a skateboard and wind sail over here.
I remember skating into Regina, although Sterling's probably more like Saskatoon. But I remember skating into Regina coming from Moose Jaw. And, it's, the prairies you can see almost forever. But then in the distance, you could see this city. Like it looked like the Emerald City and the Wizard of Oz actually just kind of appearing. Because, when you're on skates, it's slow. When you're in a car, it comes fairly quickly. But when you're on skates, it takes quite a while for that little start, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger. And I very well remember skating into Regina, Saskatchewan. It's a very vivid memory of mine. So those were the days. Those were the days, eh?
Yeah, I've gone into Regina a few times, hitchhiking across Canada and stuff like that. First thing in the morning, seeing the sun come up over it,
Inline skating on the highways and going across Canada that way is a very interesting way to see things.
Oh, yeah, it would be a very long way. I thought driving was bad.
Driving is too fast.
Driving is too fast?
Everything whizzes by.
Not if you take 5 days.
And especially if you're driving at night. You don't see most of anything.
Yeah, no.
But, driving slow is not too bad. You get a fairly good look.
5 days from Vancouver to
But when you're inline skating on the side of the road, you get to see everybody's property. You get to see every barn and every city and town.
And every rock on the road.
And so many grasshoppers.
And the roadkills.
So many grasshoppers. They spread like the Red Sea when you're skating down the boulevard in Saskatchewan and Alberta there.
I see.
There's just so many grasshoppers. And as you're coming, they catch on to it and they just...
But they call it locusts there, right?
They might be locusts.
Yes, they might be locusts too. I remember one time going into Saskatchewan, and it made the news, but they had so many that people were walking on them on the sidewalks and everything, that the whole city was just covered in grasshoppers. And there's no way you were driving down the road, killing them, walking on the sidewalk, you couldn't do anything about it. It was just covered.
I don't know where it is in the world, but right now I hear that there's great locust problems.
I think it's
huge.
Yeah.
They destroy, maybe it's India.
Yeah.
But they destroy crops at such an alarming rate.
Yeah.
I mean, they just come in like a snowstorm of these eaters of mouths that are just going to eat everything that's there. A black wave.
Yeah, it's like they eat everything. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing to see, I guess, but not so amazing for the person who had the crop eaten. Right? Like it's Mother Nature.
Oh yeah, no, it's devastating.
Its force, right? Yeah.
What I got here.
Yeah, I know, eh?
Stick her in the back here.
There you go.
Bad dog, nice enough to give me.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Old school roach clip.
Now, I like to improve on ideas. I think Brian should maybe put these roach clips on the retractable lighter things. Right? So now you've got a roach clip on a retractor, right? Just pull it out. Yeah, there you go. I know you have one, but put your roach clip on there, and then you can just, there you go, you got one. Never have to look for it.
It would have to be able to come off, right?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to be, constantly using your string.
One of those keychain things, the little release.
Something you just you can put a little loop on there that would hold it.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to get a whole bunch of stuff hanging off.
There you go. Brian's probably going to start getting work on those retractors, and people can't lose them now because people will take your roach clip like
this. I found my Gibby one.
Yeah. Oh, there's
some Gibson glass. Unfortunately, they break every once in a while, but that's just the beauty of glass. You appreciate things more when they're going to break on you.
Somebody said that was a good idea with a retractable roach clip.
I think, of course it is.
You heard it here first. It's on tape. It's going to be here forever. So make sure you send me some royalties.
Yeah, exactly. If you make a bundle of money off it, and you did it because Glenn inspired you, then help the poor guy out.
Yeah, send me a few boxes and I can maybe sell a few and make some money or something, right?
So how's CannaMatch.ca?
Good. I've been
so if you want, I thought about this the other day,
Yeah.
because we were talking about, out of the blue, we were talking about how it's difficult for people, especially if they're in a different town, to find weed.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, but you could find it through somebody who lives in that town who knows where to find weed, and you can find that person on CannaMatch.ca. But I thought probably there would be like a getting rid of the middleman there. You're probably going to have a bunch of people with weed for sale that are joining CannaMatch.ca, hoping to get a phone call. And if they get lucky on the side, that's a bonus.
It'll almost be like Facebook when some guy from California or Colorado says, "Hey man, you need some meds." You know, it'd be like almost something like that.
Yeah, it'd be something like that. That's what might happen to CannaMatch.ca. In which case, you might have to have like another section for the
admins watching.
Yeah, for the people that are not wanting just to hook up with another stoner, but hooking one up with something to get stoned on.
Yeah. It'll go by the best weed.
It will.
Look, I own CannaMatch, and if somebody is approaching you on CannaMatch saying they want to sell you weed,
and you don't like it,
and you don't like it, or you don't know them, that do what I always say. I only buy weed from people I can shake hands with when I buy the weed. Right? I can say, thank you very much, here's your money. You know, you don't do it over online with somebody that you don't know. I don't know why there's people out there that'll just send their money blindly. Because
online works. Yes. Online does work for people.
But maybe
it's about being solicited when that's not what you're looking for.
But online works when you've seen your buddy order something and it came to his house.
Somebody's got to be the first one to order.
Sort of thing, yes.
Either you or one of your other buddies.
Yeah.
I know.
Hey, you want to buy Kratom? You want to buy this? You want to buy that? I'm like, come on, guys.
You might get burned, but I do know that there is good online services. There are people that get really good weed. You know, it's still pricey, but...
Interior Cannabis Collective. There you go.
Okay, we can promote it if you want. Yeah, there are a bunch of them, and that is the way that a bunch of people get their weed. And so that's all fine. We don't like it when people come on our Cannabis Substitution Program page and start flogging their weed. We don't know.
I sent you one yesterday.
We generally block them. We don't like that very much. Because we don't know who they are. I don't really want to endorse anybody, you know, at this time through that method. So that we consider that spam. But, you know, these people got to get their name out there somehow.
Well, it's sad. It's because there's a sucker born every minute. So that person puts up that post, and somebody will say, "Oh, I need this, and I don't know anybody, so I'm going to give it a shot." And then they get it.
And it might be good. Because not only is there a sucker born every minute, but there's a whole bunch of people out there willing to take advantage of people, and not even suckers, but take advantage of just good people that had a bit of trust.
There's enough
it's
people
hard to trust
weed now
in
that
this
you
world.
should be able to find somebody who can get you something locally that you can shake the guy's hand or meet the guy or something like that.
Well, if you're coming in from out of town, right? If you're in a different town, and you can go to CannaMatch.ca. You can hook up with somebody and go meet them in a park and have a puff. And
they can take you to their favorite store, right?
Or whatever, and they can help you find it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to meet people, and it's a good way to find what you need if there's no illegal dispensaries in town. It's so wrong, eh? I mean, legalization was supposed to stop the criminalization of people for weed, but mostly it was supposed to stop all those people that were involved with weed from being criminals.
Yeah.
That's what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, it was supposed to.
And yet, you know, so many people, because, I mean, for a consumer, it's good. You can have weed, you can grow weed. There's really not much to fight for anymore for a lot of people. They can have their weed. They're not going to get, I mean, I got pulled over. I got asked by the cop recently, you know, do you have cannabis in your car? I said, yes, sir, I do. You know, he said, how much do you have? I said, this is what I have. That's all I had. No problem. That was it. You know, so it's good on that part, except that for the movement of trying to rectify this stupid system of criminalization of people for this plant, all it did for that was kind of divide us between the people that want to take jobs in the legal market now, and I don't blame people for wanting to do that, and I really hope those people will keep working hard for trying to get low barrier access to cannabis. But for all those masses of people that didn't have a vested interest in anything like that, but they were just in trouble all the time because they had weed on them and they could get pulled over or stopped, and now they're fucking in trouble, like holy shit. For those people, they got very little to fight for anymore.
And I couldn't go work in a government store.
I couldn't. Not yet.
Because I know information that could help a person that I'm not allowed to tell them.
Why wouldn't work on
that would be just screaming in my brain all the time. You know, like when they ask questions, can this help me for this and that? Apparently, they can't tell you anything in a government store. You just have to go and take a chance of buying your weed, right?
I can't support government stores.
No.
As long as there's criminalization of people for cannabis, I mean, that's just ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous that the criminal law
would be evoked to try to protect this government, industry that they've set up? The criminal law.
Yeah.
You don't set up the criminal law unless people are being harmed in some way, and that does not mean investors. Investors win and lose whether or not the marketplace decides to support someplace. It's not about harm to investors. There's no need for the criminal law. I mean, that's what pisses me off the most here, is that they are completely distorting the whole idea of what it is to be a crime. A crime is not having possession of some fucking God-given flower. I'm sorry, Auntie Barbie, but,
that grows in
it
the
just
earth.
is not a crime.
Yeah.
And what it does, when you start calling, adults deciding to inhale vapors from a medicinal herb, when you call that a crime, now what you've done is that all the people that really do commit crimes, that are assholes, that are willing to hurt somebody on purpose, those people get, crime doesn't mean anything anymore. Doesn't mean you're an asshole that's going to go hurt somebody seriously on purpose. It means maybe you got some flowers on you that you thought might put a smile on your face. So it completely distorts the whole idea of what it is to be a crime in the first place. Then there's all those people that, my dad wanted to be a cop. And I wanted to like cops. And I had a real idealistic view of what it was to be a cop, And then, I got, growing up and we started smoking weed and I drank underage and got into all this. The cops became the enemy. And even as an adult, because I still kept smoking weed, the cops became the enemy. But it's not just that the cops became the enemy. It's that the cops became the fucking enemy.
Yeah.
These people that should be good people, that probably wanted to be good people. They're probably people that, when they were kids, they were playing with the toys, and they're the policeman or the good guy that's going to interfere with the bully that's hurting the innocent guy, and that's who they are. Yeah. They're people that they want to be the guy that's the good guy, that's stopping the bad guy from hurting the other people. And yet, and when you make them go around and arrest people and harm people because they're trading in herbs or using herbs, now all of a sudden they are the bad guy. And they become the bad guy. Yeah. They become that psychological bad guy because they know it's wrong. Yeah. It really perverts and corrupts our whole police system.
You go on the bandwagon.
So, this is fucking wrong, folks, to use the criminal law. A crime is when you intentionally cause harm to people. And those two things have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And they have to be significant. You have to know that what you're about to do is wrong, that you are going to cause significant damage, and then go ahead and do it. They have to prove that you did do it and that you did know that what you're doing was wrong. And so, when they get people up there, they wanted Jerry Martin to plead guilty because he helped get people cannabis. Yeah. This is not guilty of a crime. This is not a crime. That's helping people live. Yeah. So, it's completely distorted and perverted what it is to be a crime and a criminal and what it is to be a policeman and a peace officer and how we view those people in society here. Government in general gets a great deal of disrespect because they lie to us all the time. But when they're also behind the prohibition of cannabis and the policies that have led to the street drugs that are out and available to people that get addicted to opioids and pulled off them and then seek them elsewhere because they can't get them and they still hurt and they're still in pain and they're adults and this is what they want for themselves. They've decided this is what they want for themselves and they're adults. They get to have what they want. Yeah. And governments are not there to get in between people and what they want. They're there to stop people from being harmed. They're not there to impede business. They're not there to set up boundaries so business can operate. They're there for the opposite. These public servants are there to help us get what we want. They're there to facilitate business when it comes along, to give licenses when a license is due, at a reasonable fee to cover the costs of government, but not something that impedes the process of getting the license or anything like that, unless there's harm being done. And when there's harm being done, that's not hard to deal with either. You still give licenses, but with little conditions. Reasonable conditions. Reasonable regulations that, that don't impede on our natural human rights to be able to access what we want. Whenever there's a government regulation, that's balancing your human right with the need to try to protect people from getting harmed. And they need to be reasonable and effective and not intrusive. They need to be the least intrusive possible on our human rights. Every time a government, a body of public servants, decides to interfere and intervene with what's going on in the public, it needs to be the least intrusive possible as you're dealing with people and their human rights in trading and buying and selling and all the rest of this.
So as people who pay taxes are getting our rights, and the people who are sitting in the alley on the other side of this wall that don't pay taxes, nobody's protecting them like we want to protect them because they don't pay any taxes.
I want my taxes to protect them. That's what I pay taxes for, is so that our public servants don't allow for people to be homeless in a lane, you know, using drugs that they bought on the street that could kill them because they just don't have a system in place to look after people properly. And it's not because we don't have the money, because it's not a money issue, it's a morality issue. It's because it costs more for us to have people living in the alley and not having proper health care and using our emergency services so often and all the rest of the stuff that happens because of these government policies. It costs way more to do that to us as a society than it does to put these people into proper housing, to give them proper health care, to give them what they need to live productive lives. But we're not doing that as a society because we're corrupted as a society, and it's all about the rich people getting richer, and they don't care about people that are dying in the lanes, even though there are sons and daughters that are dying in the lanes there. And I meet the parents of these people all the time, and they're beside themselves, they're crying, they're never going to get over it, they're going to mourn for the rest of their lives because their children were lost because of government policies and government systems that allow for drug gangs and illegal drugs and all of this homelessness and all of the rest of it that we could solve as a society if that was the efforts that were being put into place. But they're not. Because the real efforts that are being put into place are to control us as people, to exploit us as people, to monopolize the things that we use, to allow big business and big corporations to get access to our politicians and put in policies and regulations that protect them and not us. So, you know, I'm a little angry about this. I started the show saying I'm a little angry about things. I really am.
You want Dad?
You know? No, but I'm going to have a puff, and then we're going to bring in Jerry Martin. You know, see if Jerry can calm me down a little bit. Oh, I doubt that very much. You know?
Well, I'll for your dad made you laugh anyway, so
that's good. The dad would just be too much, but maybe I need more.
Well, they say a dad will do you.
I never knew when I heard that as a kid and my dad was putting Brill cream in my hair that I'd one day be thinking a little dab will do you is a whole different idea. Hey, speaking of little dabs, a little public service notice there. I just learned that really if you're using toothpaste, you should only use about the size of a pea on a brush. You shouldn't put a whole bunch on there. It's really quite toxic. It really does actually harm your teeth over the course of time. And so, yeah, just, you know, if you're brushing your teeth, it's good to brush your teeth, but don't use too much. There you go. Now you know.
All right. See you next week, sir.
Thanks, Glenn. We'll see you later.
All right.
All right, so speaking of Jerry Martin, what's going on here with this is that Jerry was a dispensary owner in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, back in the days when there was lots of dispensaries popping up in Vancouver and Toronto and other places across Canada, although his was one of the first in Saskatchewan. All right, Jerry, come on in. I'll introduce you while you sit there then. I should have let John be the producer of the show. He took your chair. That's what happened. We had to swap chairs. I understand completely. I'll have wings for you to stand in next time. But so yeah, you know, Jerry. For those of you who don't know, I mean, regular watchers of the show, I know I repeat myself regularly, but it's important that we talk about these things in ways that people understand. And for new people that are watching the show, may not know what's going on, I try to make sure that everybody is a little bit up to speed. And so Jerry was a fellow that wanted to give back to his community after a life of being sometimes on the streets and being involved in things that he wanted to help with. And so ended up opening a dispensary in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, and operated that for 4 years, had about 1,000 members, became very close to the people that he was helping in his community there. With legalization in the future, not far, Trudeau talking about that, with dispensaries popping up all over the place in Canada. And Jerry figured that he could be part of that and that he would be included into the legalization scheme and brought into the mainstream of businesses. And so that didn't happen. Instead, what happened was Trudeau lied to us and said that the medical people would be taken care of with legalization. And instead, the opposite became the truth. The medical dispensaries became you know, the target of law enforcement, and they've been shutting down all over the place and continue to do that. And Jerry's was included in that, and he was sent a letter telling him to cease and desist, but, you know, I'm not going to go into it with any depth, but you can just imagine that if you're a dispensary owner helping people get access to what has been illegal for all of this time, and it's helping them profoundly, and they're thanking you every day for it, and now you're supposed to tell them that you can't help them anymore because, what, it's now more illegal today than it was yesterday? You're not going to do that. You can't do that. He couldn't do that. and ended up getting arrested and charged and properties seized, and it's been a horrible ordeal. It's been going on for over 4 years, trying to get his day in court, and finally that's happened. But there's a publicity ban on the court proceedings, so we really can't talk about what happened there and who said what. But we can tell you that this is what it's about, and we can talk a little bit about that. And Jerry's got a lot of other stuff going on in his life that's very valuable and important as well. So I want to have him on the show. But we'll try not to give you any details about what happened in the court case, because we wouldn't want to interfere with the court ban. So hi, Jerry.
Hey, how's it going, Neil?
It's going well. Does it feel better? You got to load off your chest a little bit?
Yeah, much better, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what it's about, of course, is providing access, like you were doing for all those years, to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to get cannabis, maybe through mail order, but a lot of people can't get it through mail order either. So a lot of people, especially in rural Saskatchewan, were just out of luck when it would come to getting things that would really help them in their life.
Yeah, for sure.
And you started providing that for them. And so this whole court case is a constitutional challenge where yourself and 2 other Saskatchewan dispensary owners have joined together to put this challenge forward about that, well, this was wrong. You know, there needed to be access to people, and then see what the government's going to do about it. So that's going on. And the other part of the hearings will happen in September. So what's happened now is Jerry had his day in court and got to get all this stuff off his chest. I thought you did a great job of explaining, you know, why you did what you did and what you did and how you did it. I thought that was all very good. And then the other people as well had their say. And that's now going to go to September 16th, I believe.
17th.
And 17th, where there will be these final arguments and submissions. And then who knows when the decision comes after that. But so that's what's going on.
Right.
I'm wondering now if Health Canada, they're aware, obviously, of your case. And they would obviously be aware of the significance of your case with respect to what we're trying to do here with our license application. I'm wondering if they're now going to wait until the decision comes down on your case before they get to our decision.
Yeah, they may. Who knows?
They might. I mean, it wouldn't take that much longer. It's been 8 months now. So what do we got?
They take their time.
May, June, July, August. So another 4 or 5 months. You know, right through the heat of the summer.
Yeah, well, it's coming to an end anyways for me, so at least it's part of it.
Yeah, whenever that decision comes down, then we'll see what that decision means. But for us, we just have to keep pushing for the ministerial exemption.
Yeah. Ted's is doing the same, I believe.
I don't know if he's applied for an exemption.
They have, actually. Owen sent me the, if you want me to forward it to you, Owen...
Please do that, yeah. I sent him ours back in the day, you know, when we had done the same. Yeah. And so that, that ministerial exemption is something that shouldn't take long and would really allow us to do what we need to do the right way until they can decide. I mean, we're still doing it. We're sitting out there in the RV still doing it.
I see Bubways is still going down there.
There's a number of them still going on.
There's a number of them, you know what I mean?
Some pop up and leave after about 6 months.
I'll think about it again, dude.
I think Budway...
Almost up.
I think maybe Budways is just out of sight.
That's third time.
Well, still, that's it, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of cops over there. There's a lot of cops traveling over there.
Yeah, they would be driving back and forth there.
Yeah.
But do the cops care?
No,
I don't think the VPD are paying much attention.
I don't think they particularly care much.
I think CSU cares.
Yeah.
I think CSU, in fact, I was told through the grapevine, so I don't have this from the direct source, but Ted Smith's landlord has now been contacted, apparently by the CSU, and told that, no, what Ted's doing is recreational, and you're going to go to jail, or lose your property, or whatever. You know, there are those threats on the board.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll see where that goes. That's a crazy situation here. So, yeah, your case could really change the whole thing. And
I'm hoping so.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping so, too. So what else is going on? You got microdelics?
Yeah, lots of new products out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So tell us about new products.
Yeah, so we've got the 1CP out now, the 100 microgram and 150 microgram pellets. And we got 1B LSD, ALAD, FLAD, methyl escalene, 4-ACO DMT freebase now. So, yeah, quite a few new products.
Nice.
Yeah.
And people access this through the website?
Yeah, microdelics.ca.
Cool.
And now there's another project as well. How's that going? What's that?
It's going good. I was just trying to work at the wrap on my truck still while I was sitting there. Yeah. Now that this part of the court case is over, I got about a 4-month break to get back going on that. So potential investors, they messaged today. So
and that's about freedom of thought, essentially.
Yeah, in the end, that's what it's really about, more than almost legalizing psychedelics. It's being able to use your own mind. That's what this is about too, folks. Yeah.
This is about freedom of thought. Yeah. This is about where the government comes in and decides that people are using some sort of an intoxicant, and they're going to tell you you can't. That's ludicrous.
Right. I noticed that little law came up in the court. Well, we can't really talk about that.
Stay tuned for more, though, because, somewhere in September, we'll be able to talk about lots of that stuff. Yeah. Any chance they would remove that ban?
So no, I don't think so.
Well, not before September.
Because some other court case had it, so they got to follow. So what really irritates me about the Canadian law system is no judge is allowed to be a judge. They can't use their own, again, freedom of thought. They can't use their own minds. They have to go off what other things happened previously in court, and that's just wrong. I think every situation is different.
That's right. And, that's right. Precedents
warrants different, different justice. So
I mean, I think precedents should hold some weight, but I don't think they should bind a judge.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem in lots of it, for sure.
I think it depends on what precedent it's about. I think it would make a difference.
Freedom of thought is a very, very interesting concept.
Yeah, when it comes to locking people up and putting them in a cage, I think that should vary.
Seriously, eh?
Yeah, especially down in the U.S. I mean,
you're a full-grown adult and you want to light some plant on fire. You're a full-grown adult and you want to light some plant on fire. Yeah. If you're a young child and you decide you want to light some plant on fire,
I did that. I got in big trouble, dude.
Your parents are going to say, don't do that. You don't know how to use matches properly. Yeah. You shouldn't be sucking on that piece of hay that you lit on fire. That's not a cigarette, like as if cigarettes were good for you. But, oh yeah, you burned out a field. I used to sit out in the field.
Then we got the speech in church.
Oh yeah?
Somebody knew that they should come forth. And everybody knew.
Did you just sit there?
Well, of course I did. Not my brother, everybody else. I've always been solid.
Exactly. And a full-grown adult decides that they're going to light a little bit of herb on fire, roll it up in a paper, and like adults have been doing with tobacco for a long, long time. Yeah. A full-grown adult decides to do that, and some other adult or group adult decides they don't want him to do that. I mean, are we for real here? Yeah. Like, I don't know who made these things up and how that got to be, but like you, it shouldn't mean that it keeps going today, because we got brains. We can think about shit, and that shit makes no sense to me whatsoever. Governments that would dictate that, you can't do this because it's going to make you think in ways that you shouldn't.
We don't want
you to.
That was the thing, though. Because it wasn't about thinking about, should I pay taxes? Do I think this guy's a good guy? Should I vote for him? No. It wasn't about thinking like that. It was about thinking about, I can't keep my eyes off that girl, and I'm going to rip her clothes off whether she likes it or not. It was about rage and violence, and so they said, oh no, this stuff causes you to go completely insane. So for that reason, and same with alcohol, that was the reason there, is because it was driving people into getting drunk and causing fights and beating up their neighbors and shit like that. These are the reasons that public servants decided that they could take it upon themselves to prevent you from ingesting those things that would cause your brain to be violent and insane and do shit like this. And then it kind of went from there.
They cause harm to others.
To harm, that's how they sold it. Yeah. But it's about thought control. Yeah. And in the end, it doesn't cause you to be violent and insane. Yeah. And in the end, it shouldn't matter whether or not you're violent and insane because you ingested some.
You're most likely violent or insane already.
Well, that's what I mean.
Tendencies.
You
know what I mean?
You don't blame it on a plant. I mean, if a plant drives people violent and insane, then it gets identified. We figure that shit out. Now we have a role for public servants. They can say, hey, folks, This plant makes you violent and insane.
Or it's interaction
and then nobody wants to do anything with that plant, you know? It just gets put on a list of dangerous plants, and people don't cultivate that plant. They don't bring it into their house. They don't have it around their kids. They don't ingest it themselves.
Nobody goes and rolls around in poison ivy when they see it.
Of course. You know, if it's gonna cause your stomach to be upset, if it's gonna cause you to itch like crazy, sure, put it on a fucking list and tell us about it, and we don't want to do it. If it's gonna make me angry and insane and harm my family and my neighbors, tell me about it so I can avoid it. You know, because nobody's gonna do that shit. You put a bucket of cocaine or heroin with all that's been told about it, like, you know, all the hype about how bad it is. You put that out in public and say, here you go, folks, you can have this, but, you know, here to remind you of all the bad things about it. Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to go get it except for the addicts, of course. That's a different thing. But
they also portray it as glamorous on TV.
Oh, of course.
So that catches the whole,
what
happened to me.
Now you're saying, this will make you dance all night, and cause white girls to have sex with black guys. And, you know, the way they sold it back there, it really enticed a lot of people into doing it. But if it was really just bad shit, I mean, this is just bad stuff. There's no good going on there. Nobody wants that. They're going to walk around it. So governments,
they want that stuff going on, man. They want the drugs and the trade and the, you know, they want to keep it rolling.
So in case you ever thought that all this was really about governments that did care about whether or not a drug was making people insane,
T-shirt with fucking
it never was.
on it.
Yeah, it's never been about that. There was never any justification for making this a criminal offense to have or grow or sell, but it never was any of that shit. So I'm still angry. It's going to be angry for a long time, I think. We'll see. Maybe, you know, if the government really wanted to help people with their anger, if they were like, you know, okay, this could be our role. Maybe as public servants, we could somehow stop the angry people from hurting other people. If they wanted to do that, then they'd make weed legal. And then I wouldn't be so angry.
Of nice little resorts in the mountains where they send them to,
well, they wouldn't be making weed illegal, because making weed illegal makes me angry. It makes lots of my friends angry. It makes us crazy. We quit our jobs. We do all kinds of things we wouldn't otherwise do. I should be out fishing on some beautiful lake. Instead, I'm leading a parade down the middle of the street with an old fire truck and a bunch of signs. You know, and all these other things. And I'm really sorry we missed the Global Marijuana March again this year, but, you know, 2 years in a row, COVID. Next year, hopefully,
Where are we going to be in next year?
Well,
we'll see what they have in store for us.
P&E, they've canceled the fireworks.
Oh, they did cancel it. I was
They just
wondering how
canceled
they're
the
getting away
fireworks,
with it.
And P&E's been canceled also, too.
Fireworks got canceled today.
On Monday.
Oh, it's been
Monday, yeah.
Yeah, so we're still in this
I thought they made fireworks illegal last year.
No, the Honda one. The big one. You know, the $1 million show that we always have?
No.
3 nights down at English Bay.
Oh, okay, yes, my boat was stuck there.
Yeah, so
I remember, and the Cubs told me to come get
the
it.
last 2 years, they've canceled it, so they just canceled this year. But they said they will be back for their 30th year, which is next year.
Yeah.
Well, they already booked it for next year, so they're optimistic. And if we can legalize weed, because I understand now that there's 2 types of vaccines out there.
Yeah.
There's the chemical.
viral
There's
one?
the chemical. No, I think you're not understanding what I'm saying, because apparently cannabinoids bind to the same receptors as would the COVID virus if there wasn't already cannabinoids bound to those receptors.
Yeah.
So if you immerse yourself in cannabinoids, it's just like having a vaccine.
Either eating them or smoking them. It could be like a vaccine, yeah.
That's what they're
It
saying.
could
This
be.
is
They're working on vaccines. Dr. Price was working on a vaccine with somebody too.
They did,
So there's a few of them in Toronto working on them.
But these are vaccines that include cannabinoids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But cannabis itself, apparently, this is coming out of Israel at this point,
Okay.
where it looks like that when you're ingesting cannabinoids, they bind to these receptor sites, and when there's cannabinoids bound to those sites, there's no place for the virus to bind. So I don't know nothing. I'm not a doctor. What do I know? I'm just saying what was coming out of Israel at this point.
Because I've been to Saskatchewan, Ontario, cannot wear a mask for this whole thing. I just had the antibodies test. I have no antibodies. I've never had COVID this year. I've never been asymptomatic over this whole
You
year.
may or not have ever come in contact with it. You don't know.
You would think that.
But you are well saturated in cannabinoids.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
As are we here.
Yes.
And we here, here being the CSP Healing Wave RV outside there, and the the Cannabis Substitution Program in general over the last 2 years, or year and a half now, or a year and some of this pandemic, we have been front and center on the front lines, dealing with all the people in the neighborhood, random people, all day long, every day. We are doing what we can to keep our distance to a degree, but at the same time, there's a lot of air being transferred back and forth, and, touch wood, evoke the forest gods. I learned that you're evoking the forest gods when you knock on wood, which makes me wonder if you knocked on weed. Maybe you'd be evoking like the weed gods.
No, maybe the stalk of the weed.
Knock on that.
Knock on that. Everybody carrying around a big stalk, a big chunk of stalk, and you just like knock on weed.
Yeah.
And then you evoke the weed gods, and we all know that the weed gods are wonderful people. But yeah, it'd be nice if the government didn't make me go crazy. They've almost made you go crazy too, right?
Close.
I'm already there.
It's been close.
I'm
For the
already
last
there.
4 years. There's been moments. There's been moments. Me too. I have my moments, I haven't broken anything, and neither of you, but...
I know it was just a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So
so far,
long face.
lesser men would not have dealt with it as non-violently as you and I have. I'll tell you that.
Well, it was different when I was younger, but I don't drink anymore.
Me
That
too,
helps.
a little bit. I stopped alcohol when I turned old enough to drink, and so anger hasn't been a big part of my life. But there was a time when I was younger, when I was a little bit crazier than I am now. I thought about lots of things, with trying to solve this issue. I mean, what do you do as an activist? It drives you crazy.
Yeah.
Because
We're
what
gonna
the fuck can you
take
do,
over a building sometime.
Exactly. I thought about taking over buildings. I thought about walking into different newsrooms and saying, I'm taking this newsroom over, and we're going to talk about this prohibition shit until we get it right. And
We'll have a smoke out in front of Kennedy's building. A bunch of us standing around smoking joints.
yeah, well, we did lots of protests in front of lots of buildings with lots of signs.
That
And
kid in there and his girlfriend just got in trouble for setting up a cardboard box in front of his building.
Yeah, it drives people nuts.
The city moved them immediately, right? So
I know.
Let's go smoke.
I thought of getting up on top of a pole with very little food and a glass to pee in or something, and sitting up there until they realized.
It's a two-sided thing.
I realized that wasn't going to threaten anybody enough. That wasn't going to do
Following
it.
a hose.
None of that stuff will do it.
None of those street homes would be
All of it
happening
helps.
if they had somewhere. Yeah, you gotta understand for the people living there too. They don't want it.
No.
But
becoming popular.
it's not either person's fault, right?
No, it's not.
They're quite popular in Toronto now.
What?
The little small tiny huts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple cops bring those to people in the news
Yeah.
there, which is.
I'm hearing they're making apartment buildings out of containers now. A bunch of containers put together, and they can make an apartment building out of it.
Yeah,
So I have one up on
it's
Hastings, that
happening,
big orange and brown thing
Yeah,
that you see up there. That's all containers.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
what that is.
Yeah.
I saw a house the other day where they positioned containers to, they had like two beautiful front ends, and then they finished it all.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know those were containers at all.
No.
So that's pretty cool because that's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. So there are solutions out there.
Lots of solutions.
Let's maybe not send so much to another country. Maybe to send only half of it, but the other half towards helping the homeless, the people that actually live here.
I think the whole world should just share the wealth.
Kind of thing.
This country gets this and that country gets
Yeah,
that.
don't get me going there because then I'm going to tell you get rid of the churches.
Talk about housing the homeless.
They got all the wealth, right? They own all the land and gold
Yeah,
and
lots.
stuff like a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. So
I don't know what they're
They're
waiting.
their people. Here's some rice.
Yeah.
Follow us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're waiting for. If they're accumulating wealth, then really they should be circulating the wealth. They should let it flow back to the community
Bleeding out the
in so
lower
many ways.
class.
So we've now emptied Strathcona Park pretty much of the people that are there. I think it was handled a lot better, is what I'm told by the people on the ground there. That whoever is this new park board person that was put in charge of that, I don't know her name, but it's been very. She was a homeless person herself at one point.
So very
And
respectful.
so they've moved everybody into places. They certainly offered everybody places.
Yeah.
200.
Mind you, ignoring all the people in the lanes all over the place that are still homeless, and they probably should have gone to all of those people and said, "Hey, you don't have to live on the side of a dumpster here." But the other side of it is that they decided to do that because that's what is demanded because of the situation that arose and the politics involved. And so they just throw our money at it.
Some of them are really comfortable. They don't know anything else. So they would almost prefer to be where they are.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of in a place because it's so unnatural to them, right?
So what the government's done is they bought a bunch of hotels up.
I think your answer might be coming out with those hotels.
So they bought a whole bunch of hotels up. They say they paid fair market value for it. I suspect the people that sold the hotels had a champagne dinner the night they signed the deal. But I saw some of the numbers involved in how much it's costing per person per room.
Oh wow!
And it's huge.
Yeah.
It's way more than it needs to be.
Yeah.
If our public servants were doing due diligence on it, they would build tiny homes in not too remote in areas. They'd put, nowhere near the amount of money they're going to put in per person right now to temporarily house in hotel rooms that are not what they really need anyway. They're reconditioning a lot of these hotel rooms to put in mini kitchens and stuff.
Millions and millions.
They're making apartments out of it. Millions.
It's ridiculous.
Hundreds of millions of dollars is now being thrown at that,
That's right.
which is fine.
Which is good.
Solve the issue,
Yeah.
but don't overspend the money. Don't waste the money.
Yeah.
So, it's not just the owners of these places that are selling them that are having champagne dinners. It's a lot of the contractors and those groups, the for-profit groups that are involved in managing these places, and all of those people, they're making a ton of money, and I think they're making a ton of money more than they should. And so here again, it's an opportunity to have a look and see what government's doing there. Who's getting these contracts? How do they know each other? How did they lobby? How did they get the contract? Who are these people? We need to scrutinize all of that. When I see the type of waste that looks like being, used now to solve this issue, so government can get up and say, we spent all these hundreds of millions of dollars to solve this issue. Well, sure they did, and good they did that, but they could have spent a lot less than that. But they kind of like being able to say they even spent as much as they did.
So are they making places like where a landlord lives? So like when you walk in, there's somebody there that says you can go ahead or not, and it's only for the people that live in that building.
Well, that one was built from scratch, and there's been a fair bit of that type of
that they're going to use.
They're using that model along with a lot of other models. There's actually the same. Can talk about containers. There's container buildings that they've built. The BC Housing has built in numerous different places. They're temporary. They're only supposed to last for 5 years. But they're housing a lot of people. Many of the people that came out of Oppenheimer when they cleared that park out, they've gone to live in these modular units that they've built in many different places. And some places not good. Some things are not good about them. But better than being on the street for sure.
Yeah, the homeless guy that I see, he's not out. He finally got a place. They put him in a hotel for a couple of weeks, and then they got him a place. So and I've been seeing him out there for years. So I don't see him anymore. I kind of miss the guy, but it's good to see that he's finally gone.
Yeah, they're more good than bad for sure.
Yeah, we feel
probably healthier.
As they're always good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because he was going through
pneumonia and stuff like that.
Yeah,
in the rain and the cold, right?
I mean, I'm sure you couldn't do that without having a whole bunch of issues, based on the dynamics of what you're trying to do.
And there will be,
but they really do need to have very, very well-trained people in those key positions because they have 24-hour people on site there at the front door.
Yes, I've never seen that.
And they interact with the residents all the time. And many of those people have a lot of barriers, and they require a real special touch to be able to do
I think
that.
they even have a floor where it's just single moms, right? And where
they try to put the wheelchair people on the bottom.
Yeah,
they try to
just
keep
be safe. There are no guys are allowed up on that floor because
I haven't heard of that one about no guys.
I think so.
I haven't heard that.
One of the floors was just single.
Well, not only that, I have personal experience with the model that they're using for these particular modular units. And I've not heard of any segregation of men to women, but they do sometimes move people apart. And you're allowed to use in those buildings. It's your space. You can do what you want. But that again, there's a whole host of different issues that arise. So it takes a very well trained individual. And they do have those courses that they do put the people through there. And then it's not just about being trained. It's about where the heart is. Where the motivations are. Some people, they're bullies and they can't be in that situation. These people have been dealing with bullies all their lives. So you need people that are very compassionate and understanding and have good tools. So anyway, that's a whole other different topic. But it is kind of on topic with respect to the homelessness side of things, because this is the population of people that are most at risk, most vulnerable, and least able to access services such as what you had going on in Whitewood there. And that was a big crux of what was presented in the case, was for those people that don't have proper housing, that in many cases, probably most cases, don't even have a bank account. They have to have access. So that's the battle that we're fighting here. So, anything else you want to talk about while you're here?
Really?
You're good?
Good, yeah.
All right.
Things are good.
I'm going to go out and do a little review of the CSP situation in the Healing Wave van. And that's what I know. I've got your bag right there.
Oh, right on, man.
You can have that before you go.
Go.
And thank you for that. And thank you for everything else. And I'm really glad that things are moving forward.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
You've at least had your say.
Yeah.
Because I felt that that was really powerful myself. It was good
I think
to be
I
there.
will.
Fingers are crossed if that helps.
Oh, right, yeah, hoodie, yeah.
It's in the bag.
Yeah,
Now, I can't.
go.
With John here, I can't.
John
I
ruins
just can't.
surprises.
He does. You know, he's just got
Ruining the
We're in the
surprise.
middle of a show. He's even going to speak to me. Nobody even knows he's there. Like, but John's just so on it.
He's all right. That's fine.
He's so on it. He's been looking after this for us, and it does provide me with the opportunity. You want to go?
Yeah,
grab
John makes
it?
all my
Grab your hoodie?
microdelic stuff too. If you ever need artwork and stuff.
Yeah,
for
he's
your company,
great at all
shoot
this
him a
kind of
shout.
stuff. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
It's a little heavier than you thought it would be,
Yeah.
because you can open that up now.
What's in the bag, Jerry?
Yeah, what's in the bag, Jerry?
So when someone sees
I wasn't going to do this on the show. I was just going to tell you to take your bag home. But, you know, thanks for all your help and support over the years with the CSP. A regular donator and supporter in so many ways.
That's awesome.
And
Thanks,
so
man.
we have these hoodies that we have available for people. John has been doing such a fabulous job of coordinating all of that and getting them shipped out to people. It's a minimum $25 donation to the CSP. That's a bargain. That's what we wanted to do, was provide people with a really good bargain. The only problem is if you live out of town, it's going to cost you another $25, $30, you know, something like that to have it shipped. So by the time you spend that and the $25 on the hoodie, you're paying what the thing is really probably worth. But you get a CSP jacket, and you get to support what we're doing, and that always feels good, I'm sure, for people. So we're very thrilled that we were able to do this, and this is our latest thing. And John's just not good at coordinating and organizing and sending out hoodies and stuff, but he's been one of our main Baker donator contributors for all these years. I'm going to put him on the spot. He wants to interrupt my show. You want to come on the show for a minute, John?
No, I'm good.
You're good? You don't want to come on the show? You're not going to come on the show for a minute, John? Right here, it's got your name on it.
I just want to interrupt, that's all.
You're not coming to interrupt me
I
like
just want to
this.
interrupt and talk in the
He
background.
just wanted to come on the show, actually, probably. He never
there you
told
go.
me that. In fact, he told me the opposite of that. I've offered it to him a few times. But,
There you go.
Might help.
John, we owe you such a great deal of gratitude for all you've done to help us over the last, how long has it been, do you know?
Just past 3 years now.
Just past 3
Yeah.
years. That you were involved with Dana Larson and the stuff that he was doing.
Yeah.
And Dana and Cindy, they were donating to us once in a while.
That's right.
And you started to get involved. How is it that you came to be involved in baking for us and coming there and giving away food?
Well, I started making infused food and giving that away in the line.
Right.
And then I used to come with pizzas and pulled pork sandwiches, hamburgers, all kinds
Right.
of chicken fingers.
So it just evolved from there that we eventually
Yes.
picked a day, and that would be your day in the line.
And then when Mary moved to London, now I'm doing a regular weekly baking
Oh,
of
but you've been doing more than that since before she left.
Oh yeah, I was doing that about it.
You stepped it up a little bit when she left.
I was doing both.
Yeah,
I would bake cupcakes and then I'd bring an infused meal too.
yeah. So yeah, it's been wonderful to have you doing all of that.
Yeah.
You're also a board member with the Serious Hope Society.
Yeah.
And we've got some great plans and stuff we're going to do with that. And you're a graphics guy.
I'm
you
a graphic
You
artist
had
for
these
40
made up.
years.
That's your design. And
Yeah.
you had those ordered somewhere in the States, I think.
Yeah, out in California, yeah.
Right? Just couldn't find anybody local to do that at a price that was reasonable.
Yeah.
But that'll change too.
And then I have all the equipment at home to put them on the hoodie.
But you have more equipment at home than just that. You
Oh
have
yeah, I've got an
equipment
inkjet and all kinds of stuff.
So you
yeah.
make great big huge posters. You make
Banners.
all kinds of banners
Yeah,
and
all kinds of
things
graphic
like that.
arts.
So is there
packaging.
Are you available? I mean, are you too
All the
swamped?
time.
Do you want more work?
Yeah, I love more
How do
work.
people get a hold of you then?
Well, they can get me on Facebook. Just PM me.
Okay, so
I'm on
John
our
Murray.
page. Yeah,
You can find him probably through the CSP page
Yeah.
or through my page.
yeah.
Okay.
My page.
Jerry's page.
So why do you do what you do? Do you hate prohibition, or do you just like helping people?
Just
or,
like to help out.
yeah, how do you
Yeah.
feel about prohibition?
And it's horrible, like you said. We've all been through it.
Yeah.
You and I have been to many a protest.
You certainly have.
We were down at Victoria when they legalized, and
And you're a researcher. You're famous
I
for your
researched
posts.
for a lot. Yeah,
So you get to the nub of whether or not there's profit involved in LPs, and
I do
whether
follow
or not-
that quite a bit.
You do. So your posts are much appreciated and looked forward to,
Yeah.
as you really do expose the numbers of what's going on here.
I tell it as it is.
So
The
in a
numbers
nut-
are harsh.
In a nutshell, what's the future for the government system?
The government system of cannabis.
Yeah.
Well, the laws are going to change. I think we got to get rid of Trudeau first.
Well, but who would take his place?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't it?
Well, it does in a way, and it doesn't. There's nobody that's qualified right now.
There's
Really?
nobody qualified.
I don't think.
There's probably people that are worse than him.
There's probably worse than him, yes.
That's the only reason I don't bash
But
him
he
as
has
much as
no
I should.
he has no thoughts into change the Cannabis Act, so that's
Well,
the problem. We have to keep doing stuff like
The
Jerry's
problem is not
lawsuit.
so much Trudeau, in my opinion, as
Mm-hmm.
it is the system.
The system's corrupt. It's a
corrupt.
horrible system, and
Trudeau,
it doesn't work.
Trudeau is a handsome face with a nice hairdo that could smile at people, and his
Yeah.
dad had been prime minister, and he said all the right things like people say when they're trying to get elected.
He'll say
And
that
so
while
he
he's
got,
stabbing
he
you in
got,
the back.
he got himself elected.
Yeah.
But he's just in a position where he has to tell us what we want to hear
Right.
and do what the forces behind him tell him that he has to do. And that's our system. Because obviously, he is subservient to some very powerful money forces that
Exactly.
have got him.
Well, that's the
you know.
legal market. The legal market is basically a stock market run LPs.
If it wasn't for,
It's all investment
in my
money.
opinion, I mean, you can see the results, and that tells you, what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't have to see what's going on. You can see the results.
Oh, I followed
the
it from
results
the
tell
beginning.
me that he's made promises to people with much power that he will not allow for low barrier access to cannabis. He will
No.
not treat it reasonably as he should any other fruit, vegetable, or herb.
That's right.
That he's going to maintain this legalization. If that wasn't the case, then it would be a no-brainer to quickly allow for easy access to high-dose edible cannabis to help with an overdose epidemic of over 1,500 people dead just in British Columbia in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. It would be immediate. The science is all there.
But that was
and yet
not
here we
his
are.
plan. That was not his
Well,
plan
it's
for
not, that's what I'm
legalization.
saying. It's not about his plan.
No.
This is not the plan
We
of,
heard
of
the
the
plan.
people
I
that
heard
that are telling him
Yeah.
what he's going to do. So if it wasn't him, it would be somebody else.
Well, we
If
went
it
to
wasn't
that.
him, it would be the conservatives. And they're going to do worse to the cannabis community and to
I
what
think
legalization
they
is.
may do worse. Yeah.
And if it wasn't them,
But there's
it would
no
be
other
the
guy in
NDP.
the Liberals
And
that-
they've shown no spine here in British Columbia
No.
to do anything about anything.
No.
And like you say, they're not prepared. They're
They're not
not
at all.
capable of running the
No.
country. And
No.
if it's not them, it's the Greens. And the Greens have some wonderful policies
great
about
ideas,
you
but
know,
only
the
three
environment
seats.
and personal liberties and things like that. But they don't have a hope of getting in. They don't have anywhere near the structure required to actually gain government. And if they did gain government, they don't know what they're doing. They wouldn't know how to
Right.
run government on a federal level. And if it's not them, it's the libertarians.
Right.
Well, the libertarians, I love them. At least a lot of it. I don't like the extreme libertarian shit. I'm not an extreme libertarian. But I'm for government being public servants, protecting the individual right of sovereign beings, individuals, to live their lives as they choose unless they're hurting somebody else.
That's
and
right.
that's the role of government when it comes to interfering with people's behaviors, in my opinion. But for whatever reason, now I think they're going to change their name. The Libertarian Party, they're having a meeting to see if they want to change their name because they don't have any traction as the Libertarian Party for whatever reason. I don't understand
Liberal.
why. Maybe it's they're extremists, or maybe it's just because of the way they're portrayed by the people with money. The people with enough money to buy the red party and the blue party.
Right.
And so, you know, this is the system that we have here, and this is what we're up against. So
It's the Cannabis Act, and like you heard, we were both at the same town hall with Bill Blair.
yes, I remember
And
that.
I
Jerry
asked
was
him
there
a
too.
question, and his answer to the question was that legalization is not to make it legal; it is to keep the illegal market out of cannabis. Yeah. And that's the whole reason why.
Well, no,
and
he
I
didn't
said,
include in there because he wouldn't.
I
But it's
asked
to
him.
crush the activist community.
I asked him, "Are you guys out to make a profit?" And he said, "No, we don't care if we lose everything.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
They don't
As
want, they
long
want
as
to
they
make a
keep
profit.
the illegal market out, they're fine with that." And this is what happened when cannabis started to become legal. The LPs all got invested with stock market money. You got beer money all over the place, and they grew great big 100 million square foot grow ups.
Not hard to grow weed.
And they couldn't grow weed at the beginning, and now they grow 75% more than they can sell. And so they're all just falling by the wayside because all the investment money's gone now. Now they're looking for new investors.
Well, the investors they really need are the public.
The public's
they need
not
the public
invested
to
in
buy
them.
their product.
The public's not interested.
Well, many of the public, but some of the public are forced to buy from them.
Some are.
Some
Yeah.
are forced because of doctors' prescriptions.
Sure.
Some are forced because of
Well, that's where they send you when you get a prescription. Is you have to go to an LP
They
to
have to
buy
go
it.
through the LP.
And you have
Some
to
are
have a
forced
credit card
because there's
and
no
an
place
address.
else in their neighborhood or in their town or city other than the government stores that are there.
That's
so
right.
there's many people that are being forced into
And
this.
some are spaced out almost 100 kilometers apart. So you couldn't even go to the store if you physically lived in a small town. You'd have to drive a half an hour to go get something.
Yeah, and I don't want stores all over the place that are easily accessible if they're going to be selling cannabis the way the government's selling
Well,
it.
this is the whole part of the low barrier access that is non-existent
I know, well, you can't get
in the
access.
My
cannabis.
doctor never forced me. My
No.
doctor allowed me to grow, and my doctor's a pain specialist at Surrey Memorial. I think the people
No, I'm not
that are
saying the
sitting
doctors
there-
are
Some
forcing
people
people.
don't have that access.
yeah.
though.
I'm
They
saying
can't
that
grow
some people only
or
get
find
access to
somebody.
cannabis through a doctor's
Through a
prescription.
doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can't grow for themselves. Even if
Yeah.
they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to because of where they live or their physical condition or numerous things.
Then you
Uh,
register
so-
on the LP
So
site.
the LPs have all of that business.
Yeah.
All
It
for
gets
all through the
My
directly
register.
sent
doctor's
to
an
them.
LP doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Yusuf is an LP doctor.
Yeah.
So he works for Tweed.
So that's the government system.
But
and
I had
right.
him before he went to Tweed.
Right.
Right? So he was signing my MMAR before we had Tweeds and Auroras and stuff like that. So he
Yes.
continued to do that.
Well, that's nice of him.
Yes.
That even
Well,
though he's
that's-
working for Tweed,
Yes.
that he's
That's
a Tweed,
half
that
of
he's an
the
LP
LP
doctor,
business.
that he allows you to grow your own.
Is the medical end of it because the prescription is sent directly to the LP.
Yeah.
Then you got to order through them, and it takes 2 weeks sometimes to get your orders.
Sometimes
If you don't have a
can't
credit card, you can't order. You got to have an address where they ship it to. And we know through our CSP stuff, most of the people out here have none of that.
Yeah.
They don't have a credit card. They don't have an address.
Well,
But
they
they
don't have the
still
money.
require cannabis.
They don't have the money.
And they don't have the money.
They can't walk into the farm just down the
Yeah.
street from us and buy anything for
That's
$5.
right. That's
for
right.
sure.
Yeah. And we help those people out.
Well, those people
with
need
the low
to be helped
barrier
out.
access.
That's the thing. Legalization can't leave out the poor people.
Well,
the
there
government,
is no
the
law.
government doesn't get to put in a system with regulations and restrictions that restrict disabled people and poor people from accessing what everybody else can
That's
access or what they need for themselves. That's not the role of government. It's the opposite of the role of government.
Yes.
So yeah, they're in total violation of the laws that we have in Canada that protect disabled people.
That's right.
This needs to be part of the court cases that are going forward and what we need to do. It's despicable.
Very
that,
similar with the
The
taxes.
government would even be in a position where we have to consider taking them to court and hope that we get remedied through the court these serious violations that are harming the most vulnerable people in our society.
Well, it's turned into just like liquor with the taxes. You're paying taxes on the grow, you're paying taxes in the middle, and you pay taxes when you buy it.
Sure, let's talk about alcohol, because
And then that's all
there are some
back to
there
the
are
police.
some levels of taxation on alcohol. There are some
Yeah.
restrictions to access to alcohol,
Right.
but not anywhere close to the restrictions on cannabis.
not even
holy
close.
smokes! If the cannabis community could have access the way the alcohol community gets access, well, we wouldn't have so much to complain about.
Nobody be
but we
complaining.
don't. And if you look at the effects of alcohol on communities compared with the effects of alcohol on community, or pardon me, the effects of cannabis on communities, the effects of cannabis is you say alcohol when you meant to say cannabis once in a while.
Yeah.
And then you laugh about it. Thank you very much, Glenn. And then you laugh about it and you move on. The effects of alcohol is you slur as you talk,
Right.
and then you get angry because you didn't quite understand what the other person said, and you thought he insulted your mother, and now rather than discuss it, you're going to punch him. And on and on. We all know how it goes.
And then you drink your beer and you break the bottle.
And then the police get called, and then there's a file opened, and then you go before the judge, and then you may or may not get a penalty. The penalty may or may not include more taxpayer dollars because you may spend time in jail at our expense or not.
Yeah.
But all of these problems with alcohol, and yet alcohol is still not only readily available, but
everywhere.
advertised all over the place, encouraged everywhere. The government's making money on it even. There's a conflict of interest
They're
for
going
you.
to be allowing it down on the beaches now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so,
22
but no
beaches.
cannabis. You
No.
can't be imbibing
$150
on
fine if you're caught in
sacred
the park
herbs
smoking.
from a magical plant,
Yeah.
but you can roast live animal flesh down
Well,
on
you know
the
what's
beach.
going to happen down at the beach. The beach is just going to be trashed with a bunch of empty beer
Well,
bottles.
that too. But I'm
big
talking about the
parties.
rights of people who get to go there and splash perfume and smelly sunscreen all over
Yeah.
themselves and arrive in their exhaust spewing cars and then they have a barbecue or some sort of a thing there,
Yeah.
and they start burning the flesh of animals. And people gotta smell that stuff. Not everybody likes that stuff. I personally like the smell, especially chicken. I like
On the
chicken.
barbecue.
But you know what I'm saying? We live in a ludicrous society full of all of these norms that have come out of who knows what. But I'll tell you where it mostly comes out of is greedy people taking advantage of vulnerable people time and time again over the course of time. And all of that has led us to, well, now we got this going on the way, we can't get permission to save people's lives
That's right.
with a natural herb that'll improve their lives while it actually takes them off of the deadly drugs. And on it goes. This world has been corrupted over and over again by greed and stupidity. The stupid people let the greedy people get away with it. And so, here
And
I
I
am.
like
I'm
your
still
point.
angry, John.
Your
I'm
point
still
of
angry.
we have not had one government person even come and look at what we did.
Only the cops. And
Only
while
the
they were
cops.
raiding us, they wouldn't look at it either. They
No.
didn't want to read the letters we had from the doctors and the other things.
It
They
was-
didn't want to hear me.
He was just grabbing as much as
Yep.
he could grab
Oh,
and
yeah,
putting it on the hood of the car.
There was obviously a police barbecue coming up not long after
Something.
they raided us. And they were
Something.
low on supplies, and they'd heard just how good the herb is at the Healing Wave.
And then they
You
did
know?
the walk of shame as we heckled them all the way up the
Oh,
street.
man. It's been so bad.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Not even one government official has
Nobody.
come to see us here, yet all of these government people stand in the way of us getting a little piece of paper with a signature on it that would just allow us to have a store,
But
like
if we
anybody
open
else
back
has a
up,
store, like the liquor
it'd be
people
here.
have a store. Not only do the cigarette people have a store, there's cigar shops right down the street
There's
from
one
us,
right in the
but
corner.
you can get their product in every grocery store, at every gas station, right across from schools, clustered together. Tobacco, commercial tobacco, which there's no question about whether or not it's medicine for people. It ain't medicine for people.
No.
It's stuff that's killing people.
It's
5.5
outrageous.
million humans every 12 months die because of cigarettes. It's regulated. It's got
$15 a pack.
warnings on it. It's taxed to keep people
Oh,
from
yeah.
buying keep the poor people from buying it and dying.
It's 70%
Another fucking
taxes.
thing I could talk about.
70% taxes.
But it's available. It's
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody getting arrested because they sell to somebody underage. You never hear about that because it's not anything that's really too much of a problem. Even though, we don't want our young people getting the access to be able to buy it. Let's make it hard for them. It's not a good thing. Let's
No,
tell
you
our
don't
young
want them
people
to
it's not a
start
good
smoking.
thing. So, restricting age on that's a great thing to do,
Yeah.
But other than that, how do they justify, how do they think that we're so stupid that we think that we're just going to think it's okay that the cigarette people get their stuff in every corner store and gas station, and the alcohol people get it encouraged upon them when they go to the restaurant. Would you like some wine with that? You know, would you like a beer? How many beers do you want? You know, I mean, it's just on and on it goes. And here, people that want to access this herb. Look, the government was lying already, okay? Like, they gave up. They gave in. They said, okay, you can have legalization. We were wrong. And they actually say that on the Liberal website. They do talk about how wrong prohibition was. But then at the same time, they continue it. They boost it up. They increase enforcement. They, you know, and they're going after, A, all the people that got us to this point with legalization in the first place, from the activists to the growers, and B, the poor people, the medical people, the daily users who need it. These have become the targets of our government and on behalf of the corrupt, greedy bastards that want to sell you their shitty weed in single-use, disgusting plastics for $18 a gram, which is like, I don't know, $12,000 or $14,000 a pound for something that grows like tomatoes and beets and blueberries and whatever else a person would want to grow.
That's right.
I keep saying, because I do respect those people that grow professionally, that have really become connoisseurs of producing cannabis, and I know they spend tons of money on equipment, and they produce the finest of cannabis for the connoisseurs to consume, and connoisseurs have money in many cases, not all, and they want to, and they want to be able to buy cannabis that's expensive for a status. That's all fine. I'm great with all of that. But let's not have our public servants, our governments, propping up a system where those are the only people that get to produce and to consume cannabis, are the people that can spend the money, and the people that can grow it and spend the money to grow it expensively, and people that just want to access cannabis easily and cheaply can't just buy it like they buy celery and tomatoes and everything else that's grown in gardens. It's just a plant. The only difference between cannabis and the other plants being brought to market really is cannabis provides its own pesticide, and it produces more biomass per cubic meter than just about any other crop a farmer would decide to grow. Other than that, it's about the same to bring it to market, unless you want connoisseur cannabis, in which case that can be expensive, because that's an expensive process, and that's all fine.
Well, it just takes a little more time.
I hope I'm making my point.
A little more care.
Well, sure. I mean, we've got people, because of prohibition, we've got some amazing gardeners that know how to produce top-notch cannabis. Well, we always have amazing become, gardeners. You know, super in demand around the world, good cannabis. I mean, BC Bud is just renowned around the world, and people are willing to pay super high prices. You think it's expensive here at 10 or 15 bucks a gram from the government. It's a lot more expensive in many other places, especially if it's got BC Bud attached to it.
That's
People are willing to buy good cannabis, and there's great growers spending lots of money, risking their properties, risking not just from the government and what can happen if they find out that you're growing too much or blah, 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 or have to go all through those expensive hoops to grow. For those good gardeners that are growing a little more clandestinely, they have to worry about grow rips and other things as well. It's not easy, it's not expensive, or not inexpensive, and so that's all fine. That marketplace is always going to be there. But there needs to be easy access, low barrier access to cheap, reasonable cannabis for people that can't afford the connoisseur cannabis but still want some good cannabinoids. There's no reason they can't have that. The only reason is government interference and corruption.
It doesn't cost much more to grow good weed than it does to grow shitty weed.
Well, I know some people that have some buildings that are pretty damned expensive.
Yeah.
And I've seen some hydro bills myself personally
if
that
you
are
want good weed,
many, many thousands of dollars.
Pay.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to grow that type of good weed,
it's
not cheap.
All the way down.
But good gardeners can also grow good cannabis in greenhouses and outdoors,
Right.
And that stuff should be able to be in the marketplace.
Well, that's the problem with the legalization is there is no local growers. They're all big, giant LPs, and they're all pre-packaged, and it's all distributed through the Liquor Commission.
I know.
Where
it's
before
totally
we had a great system set up of local growers. Your cannabis came in fresh. It was in a jar. It was sold that day.
Prior to legalization, what you're talking about is we had a very fluid, non-licensed marketplace.
Good system.
But it wasn't unregulated.
No,
it was
self-regulated. Yeah.
And they did a great job of self-regulating.
Yeah. And
they had to, because it was an illegal business operating without proper business licenses. with the threat of government all over the place, they had to be self-regulated in a very responsible way.
And
so Philippe Lucas, Riel Kapler, they wrote up the guidelines for dispensaries. That was all it was about, was appeasing the government's regulations or regulatory people in the government that were going to be concerned about this or that or the next thing.
And we adjusted as they complained. We adjusted as they complained.
Yep.
That's why when legalization was coming up, everybody thought they were just going to vacuum into the old system. And everybody was already going. And instead, they just wiped everything out. Yeah. That's why they've got no sales. It just came to a halt for 6 months. Then they started trickling dispensaries out.
They're trying hard to get people used to buying expensive cannabis in government stores. And they're really hoping
it's the venting
that
process.
If they can force enough people to do that, and that gets to be accepted, and if they can pull in enough of our good people to work there, to encourage other people to come and buy there, I mean, I don't begrudge my friends from taking whatever they think is right for them in the way of their future, but I don't think that people should be promoting that government legalization. I think that they should be, if they're going to take a job there, they should be doing everything they can to continue to move the thing towards low barrier access and reasonable regulations and reasonable access. Because what we've been fighting for all this time was to get government out of cannabis in the first place, no criminalization or penalties for pot, stop wasting tax dollars on it, and stop making us pay $10 a gram and such expensive prohibition pricing for things. That's what we're fighting for. The government's
more worried about the mob and the crime families taking over the cannabis industry, where, as we know, it's all craft growers and people that care about cannabis that will open a dispensary and do well at it. That's
and I don't think that the big gang influence isn't at
there is no
at the
gang
upper.
influence.
No, but I don't think it's not at the upper levels. I think it's not so much at the lower levels.
Yeah.
I think there's some influence on the upper levels.
On the upper levels, there could be.
The gangs, they make a lot of money on prohibition.
Yeah.
Because there are large grows that are owned by organized. Motorcycle enthusiasts and other people, and
but when you have small dispensaries,
and they don't want legalization to come in a way that would wipe out the ability for them to make what they've been making. It's been a good cash cow for them for a long time too. So there's lots of big forces that don't want to have low barrier access and real reasonable legalization. Yeah. But it's just the right thing to do. Poor people need to have access. They can't have this. It's just not right.
Well, in the legal market, it's going to end up just like liquor stores. They'll have one guy owns 200 franchises.
But with liquor, and liquor's expensive, right? And people are willing to pay. And the breweries do put a lot of money into equipment, and they've got good brewers there, and they've got marketing and labeling and all that. But you can also brew your own, and there's no serious penalties for that. You can trade with your friends with alcohol. There's no serious threat with that. Doug Ford or Rob Ford, whichever one it was, wanted to, and it has, I believe, achieved $1 a beer. A buck a beer. Well, why not $1 a gram? Let's have $1 a gram. You got $1 a gram, then we can talk. Then at least, and a good gram. We're not talking cheap, shitty grams, and I'm not talking about the great connoisseur stuff either. Yeah. But you can have really good cannabis with lots of good cannabinoids that easily could be produced, and people would love it. For $1 a gram, that'd be awesome. Then we're at least getting there.
And you'd like to go to the dispensary and talk to the bud tender and get some advice on different strains and what works for you, what doesn't work. But you don't get that this now.
We got it going on here because we believe in it. It is the right thing to do. And we're going to go check out what's going on here with the hippie van outside there.
Go check them out.
And just a quick background before we walk out the door. This is the van that we're operating our low barrier, low cost and no cost cannabis availability from. And we're in an RV on the street. We've been out there for over 6 months now. That's since we were evicted from the store that we opened in good faith a few months, 4.5 months before that. But, federal government wouldn't respond in a timely fashion like they said they would to our application for a ministerial exemption that would have allowed us to stay in the store. So we didn't stop doing what we were doing, which was their point. We just moved it into an RV, and we stood the test of the city forces to try to remove us. And for over 6 months now, we've been able to do what we do from the RV. So we'll go out there and check on what's happening. Which one of these do I want to bring? I guess I'll bring this one. I'll bring that one. All right. Downtown Vancouver. On a beautiful sunny day in May. Cheers to all people named May. How you doing, Rob? So here we are. We're 1 block away from Main and Hastings. That's the epicenter of the illegal drug trade in Vancouver. Likely the biggest source of the poisoned drug supply that's here. Although this neighborhood and that poison drug supply permeates throughout all demographics of the city, and so that we're here where we need to be. There's a lot of people that are in distress here. There's the supervised injection site that's just 1 block over, and a lot of people that struggle with homelessness, poverty, and addiction end up in this area. So that's why we're here. That's why our store, which was in such a great location, that we've continued to pay rent on it, because we think that's the place to be when we do get our permission to be in there and doing that. In the meantime, for 6 months, we've been in our wonderful Scooby-Dooby van, the hippie van, the Healing Wave CST van. See, it's empty now. We could just grab what we want. There's probably there's all kinds of things in there.
Let's head to the back first.
Well, Andrew's in the back there. He's got his eye on it. But the rest of the crew has obviously abandoned ship.
I have not.
Oh, there she is. All right, Jennifer Nelson. Multitasking, I see. Wow, all right, good for you. How's your day?
Good.
Yeah? You having fun in here?
Yeah, we always have fun.
Is it hot today in there?
It was, but it has cooled down, thankfully.
So you got the windows all open and everything? So how do you feel about waiting until next, say, November, December?
Well, we are stocked up on propane, but...
That's right. That's true.
For our little heater.
Being a good manager, she wanted to be prepared. We've been going through a lot of propane, but overnight things changed here in Vancouver. It went from being so cold I'd have to turn the heater on right away to where now you're wishing it wasn't so hot. She did buy too many things of propane, and you know, I have to give her heck for something once in a while. I mean, otherwise I feel like I'm not doing my job. So of course I gave her great stress about buying too many propane bottles.
And then
almost fired her.
Rained,
you know, I told you I wasn't going to hesitate using them, but we won't use the bulk of them until we're through the summertime now. So,
we can have a little barbecue.
The way things are going, it won't be tomorrow that we get our licenses. It may be after they hear the decision made on Jerry Martin's case and Pat Warnicki's case, because they're at the heart of fighting for what we're fighting for, low barrier access, people to have a storefront to walk into, to be able to purchase cannabis products at a reasonable price, at the proper levels of potency that people need. And that isn't going on with the government stores, and that's what they need to have for people. So that's what we're doing here, and that's what we're trying to get permission for.
A guy asked me today about prescriptions. He's under the impression you can get cannabis covered. I'm like, not that I've heard of. Like, you can get a doctor to write you a prescription, but there's nowhere to go fill a prescription for cannabis.
Is he a veteran? There might be a veterans program that pays for cannabis for some of the veterans that get prescribed it.
You can also write off the things you need for a medical grow, but not the cannabis itself. So if you buy grow equipment, for
so
medical.
If you're growing cannabis and you have growing equipment, that can be a tax write-off here in Canada for you, but not the actual cannabis itself. But so I don't know of any insurers.
It'd be great if someday, you take your prescription for cannabis, go get it filled.
Yeah, we talked about the ability of people to go to a doctor and get all these very potentially dangerous pharmaceutical drugs, and they can have it within a half an hour from the pharmacy next door. What I didn't mention is most people don't even have to pay for that. It's just because of our Medicare.
All your drugs are free.
Yeah, but cannabis is something that they should cover. If they covered cannabis, if they allowed for people, especially people on disability, to be able to get cannabis paid for through the Medicare system, then that would save us a whole bunch of money, and it would save the Medicare system a whole bunch of money as well. But, you know, these are reasonable things.
The problem too is like there's doctors that are for and there's doctors that are against cannabis. And there's doctors in my clinic that want to start selling cannabis products.
Right. So like, now doctors can be in favor of cannabis if they can start selling it.
And then there's other people that, you know, say their doctor is against it. They won't help with that cannabis.
Because they don't have a dream of owning a dispensary. Instead, they're being paid by pharmaceutical companies to prescribe their drugs, and that's where all their bonuses are and all the rest of that. So there's great interest in the medical profession to keep cannabis illegal and not something that people can access because of that conflict of interest right there. That the volume of prescription medicine that they dispense is rewarded through incentive programs for doctors. So there's all these different ways that these groups have learned to make money off of prohibition, and now they're still vested in keeping it that way. They're very invested in keeping prohibition alive, many in law enforcement, many in the medical profession, many people, in fact, the gangs, as we mentioned, all sorts of people have learned how to make money in a prohibition world. And here the Canadian government managed, I mean, boy, what a scheme when I really think about it, that they've managed to keep all of those groups happy because they still all get to make money on the illegal cannabis that's being produced out there. And they get to do a good job of dividing the public, because people who can now get cannabis, even if they're not buying it from the LPs, they can still buy it from their friends and not get arrested for having it. They can still grow it themselves. They're not going to get busted, so they don't care anymore. They've got legalization that works for them, so they're not going to come out and support global marijuana marches and rallies and protests because there's nothing for them to protest. And the activists themselves have been divided, as half of us, or many of us, have gone to work in the government system, lots of them with good intentions to be able to try to fix it from the inside out. Others because, well, they're giving up. Because, you know, they need money, they got to feed their families. Exactly. So this was a brilliant, brilliant scheme by the prohibitionists to win against the cannabis movement for legalization, by giving a legalization that they control and profit from while crushing the opposition and dividing the populace, and continuing to allow all those groups that have helped them with prohibition make money in a legalization world.
Gone bankrupt, though?
Well, lots of the
not bankrupt, but like
they haven't got a market yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a brilliant scheme, and if they can convince all the consumers to purchase from their stores and abandon the black market, then they might win. But they haven't got that yet.
Well, there's a lot of people that, as we know, will never get that money.
Well, there's a lot of people that can never afford what they're offering, and there's a lot of people that are going to continue to suffer medical conditions because of lack of access.
Well, like their edibles are
Got someone who needs the window.
Yep, somebody needs the window. Okay. Let's go talk to Andrew in the back. Hi. So that's the Healing Wave window where we provide low barrier access to people. This is the CSP section of the RV. This is where Andrew is in charge of handing out edibles to people when they are part of our program. So the program is that people get to choose from this tray and a few other things, 250 milligrams of, or pardon me, 420 milligrams. I'm stuck on 250 because we were stuck on 250 people for a long time. And I'll take this opportunity to announce that due to an extremely generous donation from Gorilla Ganja, who was one of our main supporters and donators for years with the Cannabis Substitution Program, that they're going to provide us with the donations that we need to add another 100 people to the program. And that is fabulous. We haven't been turning people away anyway. We've had donations enough to be able to allow people to come and get from the side window a couple of muffins and a joint every day for people that aren't part of the program. But now we'll be able to offer this ability to choose all of these wonderful things, plus more gummies that are coming, and that's just great. So tell us about what's in the tray.
I have some cookies at 80 milligrams. I have some brownies at 80 milligrams, and I have some fudge right in front of me here below me. That's 200 milligrams each.
200 each?
For the people that have the real pain, right?
So do we have problems with people ODing on that?
No, they say it's great. I tell them to take their time. You can cut it in half, and it's 100 milligrams, or you can cut it in 40.
Do you ever get anybody saying that they ate too much and you know,
Yeah, they do.
struggled through the night?
They said that we had muffins at 100, and they said they loved them. I ate too much.
Yeah,
Great.
and they didn't mind eating too much.
No.
I'll throw in there that you can mind eating too much, that it can be a problem for people if they consume too much cannabis. So we do warn people ahead of time. But what we're dealing with here are people that we've been helping out for a long time. That 250 member has been capped for quite a while, so there's no new people for almost a year now that have been coming to get this. And all the people that come and get their edibles here, they know. We tell them, we warn them, but as Andrew said, lots of times they'll eat too much anyway. Most people don't eat too much lots of times individually, but lots of people, if they're not aware, will eat too much once or twice, maybe 3 times. But the whole experience of eating too much is usually not much fun, and we highly recommend that you don't do that.
It's not much fun at
If
all.
you're going to try cannabis edibles, you should start out really low and go quite slow from there. Even 5 or 10 milligrams could be the right place to start, and then wait 45 minutes to an hour. 5 or 10 milligrams is not going to be enough to cause you to not be able to walk properly or anything like that. But it might be as much as you would like to have until you learn how to handle the effects and learn that you maybe want more of the effects. And especially medical people, they tend to use a lot. With us here, people are using it medically for a lot of different medical reasons, but the spirit of our program and the main reason that we meet these people is because they're struggling, or we're struggling with addiction, and we're providing them with a way out. So people that have been addicted to opioids, street opioids, and been daily users of those drugs, when they transition on to cannabis edibles and concentrates, they're still daily users and they still need to use a fair amount. So the high doses work for them.
We have people who use street drugs and are trying to get off the street drugs, and then we have people that are using prescription drugs from the doctor that are trying to get off that.
Right, it's not just people on
It's not
street
just people
drugs.
on drugs. People are getting addicted to their drugs and doctors give them for the pain. We have a lot of people come in wheelchairs, walkers, right? We have electric wheelchairs, we have people walkers and everything like that. And they get addicted to the pain that the doctors give them, so they want to try this instead. Right?
We've also had quite a few people over our years here of trying to get off of alcohol and using cannabis for that. I remember presenting this to the alcohol group at Van Du, and many of those people became members of ours here as well. Right. So how long has it been for you now? You're over 4 years now. I was thinking about it the other day that
I still love it.
Andrew came and took over from Ted Scully as our head of volunteers just a few months after we started the program in early February 2016. And Andrew's been with us ever since. Not head of volunteers anymore. When we transitioned into the store, there were no more volunteers to be head of. He right away took over managing the CSP side of our operation, and that's what he does there. So, all right, let's come in the RV for a few minutes and wrap this up.
You remind me of one of those like old-fashioned cigarette girls. Just a tray.
I just need the straps around my neck. Cigarette,
Yeah.
peanuts, popcorn.
So, welcome to the Healing Wave CSP sitcom. This is an interactive online show that I have the privilege of taking part in from my seat here as an observer most days. It's a lot of fun. They do amazing work here, but I think the bottom line here is have fun. It may have something to do with the extensive testing of our products that goes on during the day.
Having fun helps us do amazing work.
It really does. You have to have something, disposition, some sort of drug, something to balance
No, we just need medicine.
the whole thing of what goes on here in this neighborhood. We see a lot of things that are shocking and disturbing, and especially when you realize that you know, the people that are here and that are afflicted with poverty and depression and drug addiction and homelessness, you know, they come from all walks of life. They didn't ask to be here like this. In many cases, it's really not any
anything that they had much choice over or much ability to control. Many people are here, probably the majority of people that would be considered in this group of people that are struggling the way that I said, are here because of traumas that happened to them in their lives, many of them from early childhood and in many other circumstances. So that what we see here are the results of a broken system, the results of broken homes, results of just, you know, life being life. You know, stuff happens in life, stuff happens to people. By the time you've been alive for a few decades, you're probably somebody who can say, yeah, stuff happened to me. And everybody's got stories about, you know, their struggles with, you know, their home life or their finances or their love life or their physical being, so much more, right? I mean, we're a society of people that have endured a lot. You know, society's not easy here. It's not easy to be a human being in 2020, 2021, or the decades leading up to this. Young people today and for decades have been, you know, under great pressure and stresses, socially and economically, and, you know, having to go and live their lives. And you know, some people are equipped through their genetic makeup to deal with pressures better than others. Some people are better equipped to deal with life's problems due to their family situation or, you know, their living conditions and where they are. But, you know, many people don't have those advantages, and many people end up getting, you know, tossed to the wayside by society. As I mentioned to start off this particular episode, disabled people have been discriminated against for a long, long time. They've been stigmatized and institutionalized and criminalized and deprived of many of the same privileges and things that the non-disabled people have in this world. It's a long struggle. I've mentioned it before on the show that, in my opinion, a society is judged on how well it looks after those that are less able to look after themselves. And there's a lot of people that are disabled by circumstance and by trauma and by injury and all of these other things. And as a society, we need to have great compassion and understanding for people and where they are in their lives. And there, but for the grace of God, go any one of us. We don't know the struggles and the plight and the lack of abilities to deal that so many people have going on. We don't know the upbringings that they came through. We don't know the genetic makeup of individuals, the predispositions to be all kinds of different things, good, bad, and indifferent. We don't know, and we can't judge anybody else, really. We have to accept people with what they present to us. We have to be understanding of people and what they need in their lives. And as a society, that's how we need to be. As an individual, you can be judgmental if you want, and you can avoid helping people, I guess, and depending on the circumstances if you want. But as a society, we need to be compassionate to people. We need to bring everybody along with us and give people equal access to the privileges and the opportunities that people have here. And people with disabilities and lack of tools to deal with stuff and circumstances that have dictated they don't have what the average person has, they need to have these opportunities. They need to not be discriminated against and shoved down and bullied even more. They need to be given a little bit of a leg up. And as a society, that's what we should be doing. And with this particular subject, where, you know, people really could use cannabis in their life. Cannabis has so many wonderful medical applications. It has spiritual implications for how it allows people to think about themselves and what life means and what's right and wrong in this world. Cannabis is not a subject that, or a substance that causes people to be violent and insane and crazy. It causes people to be relaxed and contemplative and a little bit spiritual and kind. And it's not the government's business what you're thinking anyway. But here we are, where our governments have been deciding that certain types of thoughts are not going to be permitted. Certain types of mental journeys are not going to be permitted. If cannabis is making you contemplate life, then that's something they're not going to allow to happen. There's even a great quote by Richard Nixon where he talks about the young people sitting around smoking weed and thinking about things. So the quest for freedom of thought is a real thing. And it's something we really need to be considering at this time in the history of humanity. As there's so much fake news, so much attempt to manipulate our thoughts, so much attempt to control what it is that we think about, how we think about things. Now is the time for us as human beings to take control of our destiny and forge ahead, not allowing governments, corporations, public servants, groups of people, religions, anyone else to take away our right for freedom of thought and freedom of how we want to feel and what we want to think about and all of those things. And that's truly what the battle for cannabis and mushrooms and cacti and the other herbs that can help us with those processes. It's truly about the battle for our right to be able to access these things. So this is the quest for access to low barrier cannabinoids through a storefront. It's been going on for quite a while now with respect to our personal quest for that. We remain hopeful. We hope that many of you and others will help us continue to convince government that free people deserve access to a natural healing herb that helps people. And so stay tuned for more as the weeks come, and maybe at some point we will get that permission and we will be able to have what millions of people across Canada would like to see and really do need, and that's low barrier access to cannabis, uninterfered with by government in ways that restrict access. So that's kind of it. We'll come back and visit this next week. Thank you for tuning into Pot TV. I want to say thanks to Pot TV for giving me the platform that I have to be able to make these videos and put on these shows for people. I want to thank my producer, Neil, for helping me so much with all of that and making it happen. Other shows you can watch during the week: on Monday at 4 o'clock, Carly Marley, BC Bud Gal, the 420 Lifestyle Show. On Wednesdays we don't have a show because we lost our host Greg Williams, and we're so upset about that, and rest in peace, Greg. We're going to keep trying to hang in there for you and promote peace and pot, and one day maybe fill your shoes. But on Thursdays we have BC Bud Gal helping you with your wake and bake at 10 a.m. With Morning Glory. Johnny B, I didn't get into this enough. I think I'm going to spend quite a bit of the next show talking about the need to grow. That growing cannabis is the thing to do if you can do it. It's wonderful to do on many levels because it's therapeutic and it'll help you, and it'll save you money and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also very important to do this as we move forward. We need to have as many people as we can growing as much herb as we can, because overgrowing the government is still the thing we need to do. It's still the way that we get out of this. It would help our program if you grow your 4 plants and you're not going to use them all yourself, you can donate it to programs like ours and people that want to help other people get access and trade amongst yourselves, all those things. So for growing, it's great to know how to grow. Johnny B spends all of his time talking about people growing plants and how to grow plants and the best lighting and the best everything. So check him out on Fridays. How's It Growing with Johnny B, 4 o'clock. Saturday, Sunday days you can go back and review other shows. Tuesday I'll be back for more of the THC show, another update on our quest for low barrier access. You know, take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you. Try not to go insane. A lot of bad things going on out there in our society that's enough to drive you crazy. But keep some sanity. Be sure to be kind, and no matter what you do, have as much fun as you can.